Welcome back to Sunday edition here on KTN News. Now for the final lap, and we'll give a post-mortem kind of analysis of the devolution 5 years on. The 5th annual devolution conference happened this week in the county of Kakamega. Let's listen into what Governor of Kakamega, Wycliffe Oparanya, had to say. Of course, he was the coast governor of the 5th devolution conference.
Before, Senate was not attending. But you can see this time, 41 senators have attended. The Ministry of Devolution never used to attend. You can see now they attended, and they led very many officers from the national government. And even because of that cooperation, also development partners attended in large numbers. But the other thing that created this large number of us coming together is the handshake. The handshake was very crucial for the success of this particular meeting, this conference. You can see it is the last day, but people are still seated. Before last day, for you who have been there, it will be a quarter. The whole people will have disappeared. And this shows that this particular conference was really a success. The last point I feel that this conference was a success is me declaring a 24-hour economy.
So a lot of this devolution conference will be famous for a lot of things, a very big political, national debates. That of the proposal by Raila Odinga did emanate from this particular devolution conference in terms of political development. The county of Elgeyo Marakwet apparently was not part of this devolution conference. There was a lot of, there was a display of opulence we hear from the counties, and there has been a debate of, is it necessary, this annual devolution conference? Gentlemen, Dismas, if I may start with you, what stood out for you in this devolution conference?
Well, you know, it's interesting that the people who are defining success are students. So you imagine a fella goes all the way to Form 4, he does exams, and then he walks from the examination room, then he goes to the marking room to mark the exams himself. Then he comes out and he says, I'm an A student. That's what Oparanya said. It's Oparanya who is defining success. He's the one who is telling us devolution is a success. And in my view, the person who is supposed to be defining whether or not, to establish whether or not a devolution is a success for the case of Kakamega is a fella by the name of Wafula, who expects a lot more return from devolution.
In your opinion, Dismas, do you think that Wafula and Wanjiku, the people who are the most important stakeholders of devolution, are they part of these devolution conferences?
Well, you remember last time we indicated, and I remember I'm on record, I said that this was going to be incest, and it was going to be a waste of time and a display of opulence. That's what happened during this conference, because the governors were competing to see who goes with the top of the range vehicles, how many handlers do you have, what kind of Brioni suit are you sporting, and what is happening with your deputy governor. But Wanjiku, who is supposed to be the beneficiary of this conference, was not in attendance. Now you are discussing Wanjiku and telling Wanjiku devolution is a success, but for Wanjiku in Tana River, all they can do is to see floods. For Wanjiku in Nairobi, all they can see is growing garbage. For Wanjiku in my case, for Murai in Kisii, it's politicians who are discussing who's going to become governor in 2022.
Right. What
is the success level? Owil has indicated that a number of counties, for the first time since independence, they've seen a number of roads. There are people, and also Bichache indicated that folks in Turkana no longer need to say that we are going to Kenya. They see they're part of Kenya. And you imagine that success has been occasioned, despite the fact that these guys have been squandering resources, using 130 billion on personal emoluments. Would you imagine what would have happened if the Senate would have passed a law saying that no more than 30% of your resources go to your current expenditure, that 70% go towards making sure that you come up with the development activities, that this money goes to capital expenditure. The Deputy President indicates that there is 99 billion shillings of pending bills, and this was not factored in the budget, or if it was factored in the budget, some procurement officers have engaged in mischief. Now, when Ruto indicates there are 99 billion in pending bills, obviously there is a criminal negligence on that part. How come these guys have not been prosecuted? In my view, this was a waste of time for the 5th year running, and we need to go back and ask ourselves that when we are voting people to offices, are we voting for them because they're in Jubilee, they know DM, or we are voting for them because they've got some competences that they can take us to the next level? And this is where the conversation comes in now between the winners and losers of that handshake.
Mark, do you think this must have been unfair? I mean, there have been challenges. There has been that debate of recurrent expenditure versus the budget for development. Do you think things are getting any better in terms of what's happening in those counties? And is there a need for this one-week devolution conference?
Dismas should never be allowed to wash babies because he'll throw out the baby with the bath water. This is the problem. Are there problems in county governments? Yes. Should we then cast aspersions upon them with broad strokes? Absolutely not. We are the same people who sat here and lauded people like Kivuta Kibwana on rolling out universal health care in his county. We've lauded many, many counties that have changed many, many things. And the fact is, this is an idea that is 5 years old. It's barely out of kindergarten. We cannot say that it is a qualified failure. However, there are many misgivings. Some leaked videos are an example. Others are corruption issues. Definitely an issue. But my problem, Ben, is with an institution called Senate. A group of 60 busybodies who do absolutely nothing, their speaker included. What they should
also
be
throwing
doing,
the Senate
yes,
bath with the bath
no. The Senate has proven itself to be lacking in an understanding of what its core mandate is. What they should be telling us as a nation is what laws they're putting in place to effect things that Dismas is talking about. What is the limit that is supposed to be spent on recurrent expenditure? What is the limit that is supposed to be spent on development expenditure? How are they guiding county governments in terms of them coming together and forming blocks? What law is there? What will happen if Kisumu decides not to pay their part of their 1 billion shillings they're supposed to raise? We have no legislation. What happens? What is a block? What is an economic block? What are the laws that guide it? When this block is talking about setting up an investment bank, which law are they using? What precedents are they setting? How are these senators guarding what is going down to devolution? We keep blaming the executive, but let me ask you, if the executive has work to do and they need 2 trillion shillings, would you blame them in limiting what is going down to county governments? The reason why they can do that is because senators are tasked with being able to negotiate on behalf of the county governments by coming up with the laws that force the executive to act towards the county governments the way the senators have passed laws. What we need in these countries is senators with creativity, with senators with the capacity to be the guardians, to be the bastions of devolution, not to be people who sit in a house which we don't know and basically discuss nothing. When was the last time Senate gave us a bill worth considering? You understand? The IQ on this table is higher than that of Senate.
Only that Mark forgot to mention that it's number one, a Jubilee-controlled Senate, and then number two, and most important, we should not fear to criticize anybody in Kenya. And even for the people of Jubilee, they should take comfort in the fact that Ruto has indicated that when you criticize the government, in fact, you are supporting it. So panelists must not have any fears of criticizing the government, whether it's Jubilee, whether it's going to be NASA. Actually, a good patriotic citizen must proactively criticize the leadership of the day. That's the only way you can make progress.
Great. Husband, what is your verdict of devolution?
Let me say constructively criticize. You know, I've listened to Mark, and what Mark is saying is that we need to be very prescriptive with our laws, which I disagree with. We cannot make laws for everything that the county governments do, and you cannot blame Senate if these guys are forming economic blocks.
But also, you can't leave a very new kind of system to just do everything they...
You
without
can't
any
leave
kind
them to
of
do
legal-
everything, but you cannot prescribe everything that they do and enshrine in law. But let me just finish. What I'm trying to say is, if they've formed economic blocks, you can go the Kipchumba way, that if there's conflict of interest in terms of how they're now competing in being in as many economic blocks as they can, then you may want to legislate and put a framework that will ensure that any economic bloc is economically viable. And then secondly, I think from the devolution conference, I would want to go back to scholarship. And scholars say that any communication that is made in public increases commitment. I don't think we can celebrate everything that was done there because it was a platform to open the way for the fruits of what people learned in the devolution conference to go and be realized at the county level. So I'm expecting folks from the Migori County to have engaged with other folks, with the Ministry of Devolution, and come up with things that if they go back to the county with, will help the people of Migori. And again, if you listen to the speakers who spoke, they actually committed to so many things. I listened to Kipchumba Murkomen, and he actually made a lot of commitments on what Senate is going to do that will actually push devolution further to the ward level, which is a good thing. In my ward of Kakra in Migori, the ward rep will have a kitty, going by what Kipchumba Murkomen said, and he made it in public. So it is a question of how then do we follow up on this. And I also want to agree with Governor Oparanya that he said that it was a success, and he didn't just base it on hot air. I think he gave indicators that it is a success because of numbers, it is a success because of the people who are represented, and you can see that the ministry was well represented. And maybe we can talk about, that conference between the Ministry of Devolution and the county government.
Right.
And that's a good thing, and it's something that we need to celebrate and hope that our governors, our MCAs who are there, will push this conversation to the
Mark
county
wants
level.
to disagree with something.
I
you
just
said.
want to correct him. Senate was created for the very purpose of creating laws and checking on county governments. What I'm asking them to do is their job. That's what they're supposed to do every day. You cannot tell me that senators should sit there and not prescribe laws. Then let's close that house.
You see, the laws are already there. If the laws that are there are not providing enough framework, they need to come up with laws.
You want to tell me?
It is not like Senate should wake up every day and make laws. And again,
But that's
you
exactly what does the
They don't have to
legislator
do
do?
that every day. They represent, they legislate, and they oversight. And
let me put it to you
our
like this.
problem is very simple. We focus so much on checks, we don't look at balances. And I think Dismas talked about that. That we are looking at the checks and we see that devolution has done something. There are roads here, there is infrastructure here, hospitals, but we are not balancing to look at what is the recurrent expenditure. It is more than what we expect.
But that's exactly what I'm saying.
Thank you. Chumba, give us your final thoughts on this.
First, I think I will correct Owila. The success of a
You
conference...
have a lot of derbies today.
The success of a conference is not in the tyranny of people who attend, but in the plurality of ideas. We are not in a conference.
I disagree with you. I did not say that is a success. It is how they will take it to the county. And therefore, we cannot base the numbers that attended. We are looking at how they are going to affect that.
He has clarified?
Yes. No. Let me continue with whatever I was saying. Look at it this way. For me, looking at the devolution conference, I had my personal reservation about the whole thing. How comes we are making devolution look like it is being done in this county headquarters? We need to have a model whereby the devolution conferences begin right at ward level, and then it is culminated in the national devolution conference. That way you will have ventilations from the deepest parts of this country. All the way in my ward, in Tapsagoi ward, going to Kakamega, you will know what people in my shopping center want, and that way we can be able to celebrate devolution. There is another thing which we need to, I think, inculcate in this devolution conference. We need to showcase success. It ought to be a point whereby Governor Professor Kibwana explains to the whole nation how he has done his things with the meager resources. It needs to move away from the speeches from the normal people, chairman of COG, Senate Minority Leader, all this. We need to move from objective to subjective. We need to see things on the table that are deliverables. We need to have these blocks. If we have a NOREB, let NOREB explain to the other counties that we have done this and this to make sure that this devolution is working. We need to ask ourselves, we have what we call grounds which have not been ventured into. which need to be unlocked. Do we see that being displayed in the county forums? I don't see. The other thing which we need to go deeper into is, in the devolution conference, we have a role of Senate, and Senate must come out as the guardian angel for devolution.
Right.
It must not be lost, but be it as it may now, devolution conference remains purely a meeting of hunters discussing how they will increase the number of antelopes in the forest.
All right, on that punchline, that's where we leave it. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to be on the show this morning and to share your perspectives and insights on various political and governance issues facing these countries. Kipchuk Bakarori, lawyer and political analyst and communication experts, Mark Bichachi and Desbon Owila, political risk analyst, Dismas Moko. Let's do this again next Sunday. That's why we leave it on the program this morning. Be sure to join us every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. as we dissect the biggest political stories in the Republic. I'm Ben Kitili. Bye for now.
Today, in Kenya, we need political alliances. And it can be properly used. Even tribes, if well used, have a lot of meaning. Hata Yesu alipoleta hapa dunia, salipitia katika familia ya Ujudea. Was Jesus Christ tribal? Na alikuwa Mungu. Kwa hivyo sisi hatuna shida kuwa Mluya. Nani yako na haya ya kuwa Mluya?